usually do.
I'll just stand.
Hey y'all, stuck on you here. So, um, we decided to do something a little bit different. Um, so we plan on doing the whole Stuck Spirit saga with our magnet fishing. And I happen to love like ghost stories and like really morbid stuff, which I get it, it's totally messed up. But I happen to find this book here at our local library, and it's essentially like um, articles and obituaries back from the 1880s in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Um, so we'll give it a little time for some people to roll in, but I don't know what Charlie was saying. She said something. Is it big enough? I don't know.
Hmm?
Message Charlie and ask.
What?
Hello, thanks for coming in. Just gonna wait until we get a few more people in here, but we are gonna be reading from this book here, which I found to be really interesting. Um, please be patient with me because I'm not necessarily the best person with reading out loud, but I know there's been a lot of people that have wanted me to like tell stories, do audiobooks, that kind of stuff. So,
Works for me.
you know, this is where we're going to go. Matt and I did go out and do some magnet fishing earlier. We caught 5 caltrops. 5 of them. Yes. Ended up freezing a little bit towards the end. Then we ended up going to Olive Garden and hello, Cherry. But we ended up going to Olive Garden and we got the all-you-can-eat soup, salad, breadsticks, and an appetizer. But, you know, that's okay. It warmed us up.
It was a good
Hello,
time.
Julie. So, as we have more people coming in now, we're going to be doing some readings from this book here that we got from the library. Thank you so much, Cherry. And what it is it says, before photography was commonplace, newspaper writers used a unique graphic style of writing to allow readers to visualize the sometimes horrific and tragic events that occurred in their cities and neighborhoods. This book showcases such articles and obituaries from the 1880s in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and is a fascinating read for residents, researchers, and history buffs. Hello, Felix Snipes. So please hit that thumbs up. Show us some love. This is definitely something new for us, and we hope it goes over well. Charlie sent something to me.
I can't see it.
I don't know what to do, Charlie. I can't see what you're saying, or if you're even in here, Charlie. I can't see what you're sending me. So if you can, send it to Matt if you're in here. Hello. So the first one is Fatal Firearms. And actually, I do want to let everybody know, I don't know how graphic this content is. And I apologize if anything is offensive. I will be reading things as they're kind of written out with the exception of inappropriate wordature. Um,
He told you.
Dillinger's in our vehicle. Thank you so much, Karen. Um, he's yawning. He's tired. He's ready for bed. But you know what? We got to have fun while we can.
He slept all day anyhow.
He did. He's a lazy dog. So, fatal firearms. Terrible death of a little boy at the hands of a playmate. An old gun contains a secret message of death, which does its deadly work. Hi, Dad. So we are actually doing some reading. Shortly after 11 Thursday forenoon, the discharge of a gun was heard in the second story of a barn belonging to Dr. R.P. Russell, just back of his residence on Algoma Street. And immediately there was a precipitate scattering of 4 or 5 young boys from 8 to 12 years of age with a terribly frightened look upon their faces. A moment later, and little Tommy Russell, son of Dr. Russell, rushed next door to the residence of A.H. Turner, the engineer, and told Mrs. Turner that he had shot and killed her little boy, Winnie.
Is the screen big enough? Sorry.
The mother, with frantic screams, rushed towards the barn, while passers-by, attracted the confusion, hastened to the spot. Harvey Nash was the first man to rush into the barn and upstairs, where he discovered the prostrate form of the little boy with his head lying in a large pool of blood, which was smoking and steaming in the cool morning air. He felt the body of the boy and saw that life was extinct. Others had by that time rushed in, and a policeman lent his overcoat, which was wrapped around the deceased boy's body, to help his bloody features from the gaze of the crowd that had assembled outside, and the lifeless little form of the child was carried to his mother's room and placed upon the bed. The frantic mother was wild in her laments of grief as she rushed backward and forth through the house, piteously calling her boy's name, occasionally bending with convulsive emotion over his chubby form as it lay pale and lifeless among the white coverlet, which was fast being stained by the blood which oozed from his ears or trickled down the cheeks from his half-open lips. It was indeed a scene that would move the stoutest heart. Ladies from the neighborhood soon came in to offer consolation and assistance, while an officer was stationed at the door to keep back the inquisitive crowd that had gathered in front the house. Dr. Lind and Gooden arrived shortly and stated that death was instantaneous. The ball had entered squarely into the ear passage and had evidently deflected downward through the head and lodged on the opposite side. It did not come out on the opposite side, but must have struck the jawbone on the opposite side, as it was found to be broken. The bullet had entered the right ear, and the muzzle of the weapon had been so close that to the head as to leave that side of his face speckled with unburnt powder. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's, I don't think we have, no, I don't think my microphone, earbuds, please. So he's going to be grabbing the earbuds, so maybe y'all can hear me a little bit better. Okay, is that better for everybody? As Spotify kicked me out. Is that better now? Okay, awesome. So where I left it, um, the bullet or the bullet had evidently crashed through the lower part of the brain, and the boy probably never knew what had hit him. The boy was about 6 years of age, and his name was Cassius Winterfield Turner. He was called Winnie for short by his parents and playmates. Mr. Turner, the father, was absent at Sheboygan, but a dispatch was immediately sent to him. A reporter ascended the stairs in the barn and found there a miniature armory. There was a small single-barrel shotgun, one that had contained the fatal charge. An army cartridge box lay on a bench with a dozen cartridges in it, and on the bench, a box of small blank cartridges lay beside it with contents partially strewn over the bench. Nearby was a box on bright new percussion caps. Across the chair was another belt with a cartridge box or army bag attached to it. A sword also lay on the table, and caps and cartridges were strewn all over the floor. At the spot where the boy fell was a quart or two of blood coagulated into chunks. Inquiry disclosed the fact that 6 little boys had been playing soldiers in the barn. These were Sam and Percy Still, Marty Battis, Herbert Gould, Winnie Turner, and Tommy Russell. The testimony of the other boys fully corroborates Tommy Russell in his statement that he was snapping caps on the shotgun under the belief that it was unloaded when suddenly an explosion of a charge in the barrel took place, and the Turner boy lay a lifeless corpse at his feet. Tommy says that he just as he pulled the trigger, the Turner boy stepped in front of the gun, the muzzle of which was not over a foot from the boy's head. Tommy says he bought the gun a week or so ago off a boy named McCarthy, who told him it was not loaded and that he had shot caps off on it several times since, without the gun going off. The belief is that the gun contained an old charge, which from rust in the barrel or some other cause failed it to go off until this particular explosion of the cap. There are also some doubt that as to whether or not the cartridge dropped down into the barrel would not have been exploded by the force of the percussion cap, as the cartridges found there easily slid into the barrel of the gun, and one of them might have been carelessly dropped into the barrel by some of the boys. The former theory is considered most likely. Dr. Russell was absent at Waiawega, but no word was sent him in as much as he was to return by the next train anyhow. A coroner's inquest was held before Justice Nevitt in the afternoon. After listening to the stories of the boys, which did not differ from the statement made by Tommy Russell, the jury returned a verdict that deceased came to his death by the discharge of a gun in the hands of Tommy Russell, and the shooting was accidental. Hey, Jared. This happened on January 5th of 1882. Please keep the politics out of the chat. We do not do politics. We do not do religion. So for anybody wondering, I am reading What a Way to Go by Edward Patrick Bentley. Sorry, that was the slip from the library. No, we do not. What is the quote of the day? Be kind to yourself and others. That is the quote every day. My eyes are actually blue, and that is a Suburban that's behind me. Please, no religion. I don't, or I ask that out of respect because we try not to offend others. So no religion, politics, and we have Dad calling me. Do you want to see what Dad wanted?
Oh, yeah.
So we are accepting of everybody here. Okay, so I'm just kind of skimming this next one to see. Yes, we are having a great day. So this is what we are reading. And I was actually just about to start with the next story. This one's called A Terrible Death. Man killed and his body badly frozen. An awful find on the tracks of the CM and St. P Road near Radford Dry House. The face obliterated, the coroner's jury adjourned. In all his experience as an undertaker, William Spikes never had such a corpse brought to his establishment as the one that reposed on the stretcher in the main room this morning. 10 feet away, it would be difficult for a man to recognize the body as that of a human being or even decide what the object was. It was literally cut and torn to pieces, and people who viewed it looked on with horror. A poor specimen of man who took a piece of the body and offered it to a newspaper friend remarked that it would make good soup, created but little laughter, for the sight was too horrible to induce merriment. But the crowd gazed in awe while the undertaker examined the body and remarked on the awful condition. The face was entirely gone, and the inside of the head, bloody and torn, was all that remained of that part of the body, save a few gray hairs which indicated that the man had worn a light mustache. Both feet were gone, and the thigh of the left side was pulled out and hung near the leg on that side. The right hand was off, and the other, with the arm in an upright position, clinched a piece of snow. The clothing was torn in many pieces. The suit worn was of dark colored cloth, the shirt was blue, and the drawers red. Such an object as the above was discovered on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad track near the dry house of Radford Bros and Co. At the early hours this morning. It was evidently the remains of some laborer who was returning last evening from work, the western part of the city, and met a train on the switch of the St. Paul. The portions of the body and the scraps of his clothing strung along the tracks for about 10 feet indicated that he had met a train going west and had been carried that distance by the engine. A coroner's jury was summoned, and it afterwards visited the railroad track where the body was found. The jury, however, could determine upon nothing. All day long, people have visited the undertaking establishment of Mr. Spikes, but up to a late hour this afternoon, the body had not been identified. The jury has adjourned until 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. An examination of the body this afternoon leads to the belief that the man was about 65 or 70 years old. The hair on his head was white. The pail found near the body was evidently his dinner pail. A red bandana handkerchief was also found near the remains. And this happened February 6th of 1889. It is. So this is obituaries and articles from the newspapers in the 1880s of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So it's definitely a different time. Things are not nearly as graphic now as they were back then, but it kind of gives us something to think about and see how the world has really changed in the way we communicate this kind of thing now. So, what are your thoughts on this stuff, Matt?
I love the old time stuff.
Yeah, Matt said he loves the old time stuff. And me too. Yes, people are
Exactly.
extremely sensitive. I do 100% agree with that. Yeah, there was a lot of axe murders, and Jared says, "Did you forget to say hi?" Or he forgot.
Well,
Yeah, Matt's here. He's off to the side moderating, eating candy.
keeping the dog quiet.
Would you give me more tea, please?
I suppose so. Doing my job.
Yeah, Matt's getting me some more tea, so I can keep going a little bit. Maybe I'll do a couple more stories. So, what's the most common you've seen in the obituaries? Well, I've actually just started reading this. I got this book yesterday, and Matt and I were just laying down, relaxing, and thought it would be interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have much history, but that is definitely something that I can try and get my hands on and see what I can find. I do want to do more of this kind of stuff, whether it be history of certain time frame, certain areas, like a certain country or anything like that.
England from 1888. Whitechapel.
I'd wonder how many cultures have documented obituaries. Oh, I bet you there's actually a ton of them. I just so happened to find this one at the library the other day. Whitechapel. Hey, Charlie. Yes,
it is.
yes, it is. That's Jack Durper, of course. Yes.
My second favorite.
I think it's down in the 40s now. It was up in the early or late 40s, low 50s. And that's Fahrenheit. I don't know what the Celsius translation is, but you spelled it wrong, Charlie. I don't know what Matt's doing, but I'm gonna wait for him to come back before I.
These are going to be limited editions pretty soon.
Yeah. When we end up coming up with a new logo, that's gonna be limited edition.
We're dropping the magnet fishing.
I realize this isn't a true crime channel and people think I'm a serial killer. No, not at all, SirQuest. So we are actually kind of expanding into the true crime area and stuff. We kind of decided, yes, we're still going to do the magnet fishing because we love magnet fishing, but we are going to start doing some more true crime type stuff. I do have a book that I purchased about some true crime stories of the South. What's better, guys? Weezer or Nirvana? Nirvana, easy. Um, but true crime junkies are more than welcome here. I like that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a few of us here. Ooh, 13th and 14th century, the time of the Egyptian. That would be cool. Jared made a new channel for his leatherworking and cooking. Got a new video I'm editing of homemade sourdough cinnamon rolls. Ooh, I seen the picture of your cinnamon rolls, Jared. You had me drooling. I have like a major sweet tooth at night. So
That's what candy's for.
no, I've been on baked goods lately. Yes. So I think we're gonna just kind of do Morbid Mondays. So that's gonna be on like the morbid side of things. Once more areas of water are open up here in Wisconsin, now that we're back here, we're kind of gonna work on our Stuck Spirits saga. And I think we're going to expand that a little more than just magnet fishing because there are so many interesting stories out there.
So if you want to tune in just to hear about where we're at, what we're doing, and what the story is, you could be around for a live for that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, Matthew, I don't really do many shout outs, but. Oh, you're a certified chef, Jared? Matt actually went to school for culinary arts. So he went to school for culinary arts, but I'm the better cook.
She wouldn't get nowhere without me cutting vegetables.
Yeah, he's my prep cook. Only because otherwise there'd be fingers in there. I'm not good with a knife.
So yeah, basically this is just a Morbid Monday.
Okay. You ready for the next one, Matt?
Finally calm down.
Oh, that's cool. You could even find a local horrific story and go to the site and just walk and film while you tell the story. Absolutely. That is the plan. We actually have a few that I've written down. We have some old Ma related stuff with like Al Capone, Dillinger, all that stuff, because there's a few of that in Wisconsin. We might make a trip down by Chicago, go to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery again. That was a cool one. Maybe we'll visit some cool cemeteries that have some interesting stories about them and whatnot. I know I'm terrible at describing things. Can you do a voiceover of a particular place? I absolutely can. I want to see about possibly going to the Sheboygan Asylum and seeing about doing a tour there, seeing if we can do like a solo tour there and kind of go over stories of it potentially. That may not be for a while because that can get pricey, but we will see. We will see what we have in store.
If you guys want to see something specific and it costs a little bit of money, we'll see what we can do.
Yes, if you guys have any ideas, please throw them out there because we want you guys to be involved also.
Otherwise, super chats are an amazing, amazing thing that can help get us going to things.
Yeah, what Matt said. If you want to contribute to any of our going to places for like gas money or anything like that, you are more than welcome to. We do now have the option for super chats.
Never got one yet. Don't even know how they work, but.
Okay, so 'twas Fred. Yes, hello, OG. 'Twas Fred Ruck, the man whose body was found frozen. A terribly mangled corpse proves to be that of Jefferson Avenue resident. The remains identified by a stepdaughter this morning. The article published in the last evening's Northwestern has led to the identification of the remains of the man that found on the track of the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Road near the dry house of Radford Bros and Company. The body is that of Frederick Ruck, a man who resided at 302 Jefferson Avenue. His age is said to have been in the neighborhood of 70 years. It appears that he and his wife had been visiting at the Berlinger farm, located about 8 miles southwest of the city, and that upon the evening night where he lost his life and he was returning home. The pail found near the remains contained butter, and the conclusion is reached that he had obtained this at the farm and was carrying it home when the accident occurred. This morning, a stepdaughter visited the undertaking establishment and verified the body as that of Mr. Ruck by the red scarf which she had given him as a Christmas present. She also recognized the suspenders as those of Mr. Ruck and was of the opinion that the clothing upon the body was also his. A son, Gus Ruck, was living at York, Nebraska, and was immediately telegraphed at a late hour this morning. Mr. Spikes stated for the Berlinger farm to appraise Mr. Ruck of her husband's death and bring her to the city to attend the inquest, which upon Wednesday was adjourned until Thursday afternoon at 2:00. So that happened February 7th of 1889. What horrid sign are you talking about, Sir Quest? Quick, grab the magnet. There's metal buried in her nose. There's also some in my ears and in my belly button, but it's not magnetic, unfortunately. I know that only because I've gotten my magnet close to them by accident. I know from experience.
Someone said they wanted you to go live all night.
Yeah. Another fan of Axe Murders. Yes. Villisca Axe Murder House. Yes, that's our plan actually, Jared.
What was that Bloody Bridge one?
Bloody Bride Bridge in Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
You going there?
Oh, geez, yeah. I haven't done reading out loud in a long time. And I did quite a bit of talking earlier.
Good at it. Better than me.
Uh-oh. I'm still drinking out of the tea bottle where Dillinger chewed up my lid. He decided he wanted to try and drink my tea on me. Goofy dog. Yeah, some people are into that. Some people aren't. Some people stay far away from that. I believe as long as you approach that kind of stuff with the proper attitude, show your respect towards the spirits that are there and stuff, more often than not, they're often respectful back right with you. Some of them do enjoy sharing their stories. Axes would be terrible murder weapons. It would get stuck too much. Stuck on marrow fishing. Oh, geez. Why is Sid from Ice Age apple cider vinegar? That's funny. You know, I've been told I look like Sid from Ice Age before. Also, Abby Duck from Chicken Little. I've been told I look like her too. Yeah. People see what they see. Sid is adorable. He's a nutcase, but he's adorable. I think sloths are cute. So, was he killed? Theories as to the death of Frederick Ruck. Whatever may be the verdict of the coroner's jury, the death of Frederick Ruck will always be surrounded by a mystery. It was a sad sight in the courtroom of Justice Ulrich yesterday as his aged wife identified the old gentleman's cap and the other articles of wearing apparel which he had on the eventful night. He left Pickett Station on Tuesday evening's train bound for Oshkosh. And one theory concerning his death is that to the effect that when St. Paul train stopped near the Lakeshore Crossing, Mr. Ruck lightened, believing the depot had been reached. When the train suddenly started, he was caught under the wheels and killed. Although such a conclusion is perfectly natural, there is also another theory that is receiving considerable recognition. It is the simple suspicion that the old gentleman may have been murdered and put on the track where he was afterwards run over. There are several matters that led to this suspicion, and the chief of them is the fact that so little blood was found on the body. There was no sign of it having bled to any extent, and this leads to the belief that life was extinct when the cars ran over it. An examination of the St. Paul engines did not disclose any traces of blood, and when the machines were examined, only one of them had been wiped off. John Clipp, the yardmaster of the St. Paul, is certain that if any blood had been discovered on that engine, the men who cleaned it would surely have spoken of it. February 8th, 1889. So what I'm doing is sharing some stories that were articles and obituaries from the 1880s in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Oh, geez. If I was to figure, I think you'd look like a compassionate elementary teacher. Well, thank you, OG. Thank you, Charlie. Thank God for trains back then, right? Hello, Red Cart. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. You actually thought I was your art teacher. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be a very good art teacher. Unfortunately, Jaden the Big, I only have a select few moderators. Hello, Frank. Did you make that hat? No, I did not. We purchased it. Oh, awesome. Timothy from St. Cloud, Minnesota. Where is everybody else coming in from? I don't know much about Harry Potter. Awesome, Jaden from France. I'd probably be that one that would teach like spells or like potions or something crazy like that, though. Yes. Yeah, we are hanging out in friend's shop, camping in here because it is too cold outside.
Want to see her work on cars too?
Yeah, I can do some working on cars too, possibly, depending on what Dad has coming in. If Dad's okay with that. Hello, Akbar. Okay, so I'm going to get on to this last part of Ruck's death. The jury brings in a verdict this afternoon. The jury empaneled to decide as to the cause of death of Frederick Ruck came into Justice Ulrich's court this afternoon. Martin Burhand, a farmer living near Fisk, testified that upon the night Ruck left for Oshkosh, he shook hands with him and that 4 other men and a woman also boarded the train at Fisk Station. Conductor Reynolds testified that he did not remember how many got on the train at the station. William Miller, a brakeman on the CM and St. Paul train, which arrives here at 7 o'clock in the evening, testified that about the time the train reached the Wisconsin Central Crossing near the Lakeshore Depot, a young man got off the cars after the ordinary stop had been made. An old gentleman with a gray beard who wanted to get off was not permitted to do so. He testified, however, that this man had a satchel. Ruck did not have one. Charles Partridge, the station agent at Fisk, was about the next witness. He could not remember how many passengers bought tickets upon that evening night. Ruck lost his life, but he recollected that he saw a dinner pail around the depot that night. He did not know who it belonged to. After the testimony, the jury did not appear any nearer a solution of the death than they did before. Justice Ulrich said there was a mystery concerning the matter that he was afraid the jury could not solve. After being out only a few minutes, the jury brought in a verdict to the effect that Frederick Ruck came to his death by being run over by a locomotive on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Road, February 14th of 1889. It is 10:23 here. What do you do in the morning? So Matt does Instacart and DoorDash. Forgetting my words. Thank you for stopping in, OG.
Back to work.
Ooh, this next one's kind of long. Hello, Joe. Can you find a doozy and make him read it? Okay. They want you to read this next one.
You want me to read this next one?
Here. Oh. I don't even know if that's in the right. Oh, I dropped it.
Oh, man.
Y'all probably heard me drop it. It's earbud. Hello, Mariah. Happy birthday.
Ow. All right, I suppose. This one was from, well, the 1800s.
It'll say the date at the end.
Awful explosion. At just 5 minutes before 12 o'clock, this city was the scene of one of the most terrible explosions which had ever occurred in the history of the place. The boiler in the feed mill of Follett and Stanley, located on the corner of Light and Marion Street, exploded with terrible force and shook with the explosion being in one of the most remote parts of the city. So great was the shock produced by this that people living on Irving Street and Wisconsin Avenue heard the sound distinctly and even saw particulars of debris that ascended into the air. The names of the 2 unfortunate men who were killed are Walter Follett, the engineer, and Reinbold Steineck, an employee doing work around the institution. Adjoining the mill proper is located the engine room, and here stood Follett at the time of the incident. His body was blown up through the mill, coming out of the building, and the unfortunate man struck an electrical pole. One of his legs was severed completely from his body and blown in the opposite direction toward Marion Street. The other leg supposedly was supposed to have been blown off his body by the explosion, but whether this is confirmed was not the case. Immediately after the incident, crowds gathered from all parts of the city. Upon entering the mill at Reinbold and Steineck, people could not believe that anybody could be alive. Here one man lay unconscious. The poor fellow lay at the south end of the mill and was struggling for life, but his efforts were to no avail, death revealing to him, in a few minutes. Edward Drayman, who was driving by at the time of the explosion, was blown off his sleigh and his arm was broken, but other than that, he was not injured. Will Clements, a son of James Clements, who was at the time near the building, suffered another broken arm. The scene of which follows was a beggar's description. The news death of Follett spread like wildfire in less than 30 minutes after the incident. There was probably not a person within the radius of a mile that did not know about the explosion. The report became common that 3 men were killed, and among them being Drayman Corcoran. The physicians were there and were summoned to care for the man. He was soon revived, however, he sustained very serious, life-threatening injuries. At a proper time after the explosion, the following jury was examined into inquest at the remains of Steineck: Gus Schar, H.E. Manuel, Thomas Goh, Sam Kruger, and James Patterson. Further particulars happening as it did in that day and time, the explosion was seen by a large number of people. Among those was Vet Eaton, who saw Follett when he emerged from the building, speaking in the Northwestern Reporter shortly after the occurrence. Mr. Eaton talked substantially as follows: I was just coming down Light Street when I almost was raised off my feet. Looking up, I saw Follett's body shooting through the air like a rocket. In a moment, however, it struck the wire, and thereafter the poor fellow lost both of his legs. The body, or what was left of it, however, continued to come down, being struck by another light pole near a barn, and it was a horrible sight. I never want to see anything again like it. Another gentleman who saw the explosion was Byron Dale, who said that he stood at the door of the High Street Creamery at the time. Speaking to the reporter, Mr. Dale said the explosion was so great that it seemed to lift a wagon which was hitched in front of the store 3 inches into the air. The smoke was so dense at the time that you could see pieces of iron shoot off in every direction. Albert Morgan, at the time of the incident, was in the lumber yard of the Morgan Bros and Company building. Speaking of the explosion, Mr. Morgan said, I dodged behind a lumber pile and was just in time, for a piece of valve came tearing by me at a terrific force and struck the sawdust not far away. Various theories have been floated about the explosion as far as what could have happened and what caused it. I am of the opinion that along toward noon, the fires were very low and the engines were going very fast, and there was just not enough water in the boiler that could create gas, which caused the explosion. However, there were no signs of water in the vicinity of the mill. Minor incidents. An idea of how great the shock must have been was when one piece of the valve was found near the shop of Richard Hackett, and a piece of the same valve was found in the lumber yard of Morgan Brothers. A horse belonging to a man named Wood was also injured when a piece of iron was driven directly into the shoulder. An inquest being held in Justice Ulrich's court at the time was going to pass. In addition to Captain John Leo Thermos, Richard Hackett, and Alex Burns, they have all been examined. Their theory was subsequently the same, that of Captain Neff, which was noted above. After some time of the explosion and after the crowd had passed over the spot for half an hour, Henry J. Darton picked up a pocket torn out of Follett's coat and his body passed the telegraph wires. And in this pocketbook contained $55, some notes and papers. Mr. Dorton delivered it to Mr. Follett's mother. Will Clements, the boy who was injured walking across the street at the time, his arm badly shattered, was set to receive penance for the broken member on this afternoon. Walter Follett's father, formerly mayor of the city, also met his death by accident, which occurred on the Main Street Bridge many years ago. He was driving on a load of shingles when the load shifted, throwing him off the bundles, shingles crushing him to death. That all happened February 10th, 1886.
Wow.
Yeah, I do read kind of fast. It's one of those things.
Oh, no. Speedy was the name of somebody.
Oh.
Yep. Welcome to the Treasure Fam. Somebody said you... Sirqua said you kind of sound like Harlan Ellison.
Is that good?
I don't know. I don't know who Harlan Ellison is.
I don't either. Now I'm curious.
Dillinger. Want to say hi to everyone? See if I can do this without Dillinger. Dillinger, come here. This side. He's hiding.
Did you trick? Did you trick? That wasn't the trick. You gotta sit.
He's showing off.
Sit. Sit. Yeah.
You goofy dog.
I know. Now I gotta find you treats.
In the office.
Now I gotta find you treats.
I think it's in a festival bag in the office. There's a bunch of different treats in there for him. Because Dillinger's got all the treats. He's a spoiled mutt. Very, very spoiled mutt. Wait for Matt to come back before I get too into reading. This one's another kind of longer one, but it's part of the same story. Well, got 12 hours until the next loaf of sourdough is done. Thinking bacon cheddar for this next one. Ooh, that sounds good, Jared. Oh, you're giving him Flamin' Hot Cheetos? Why?
Needed a treat.
They're still treats. His stomach's been all screwy.
Who else gave him these?
Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And his stomach's been screwy since then.
Well, he only got 2. They weren't his favorite.
Poor puppy. I'm sure he will, Joe. I'm sure he will. Bacon cheddar jalapeno. Yes. Charlie, you can't even talk, though. You can't even handle heat. I want to see pictures too, Jared. It sounds pretty dang good. Hello. Gosh.
Hey. I know. Okay. I know what I'm gonna do.
When you spell it like that, Charlie, it sounds like you're saying jalpenos. That is absolutely your choice, gamer. You're not asking for any amount whatsoever, but we will not say no to any donations. It helps us with being able to provide more content for you guys. We want to do some tours of certain locations and share the history of those. Some of them in the Morbid Monday area, others maybe not Morbid Monday, but other areas of historical significance. Yeah, you do really need to be careful with that, Jared. You're not wrong there. I think Matt was taking Dillinger out, so I'll wait for him to come back before I continue on. Where is everybody coming in from tonight? Looks like there's 8 people watching. You don't have to necessarily name the city, just what state or what country. I love hearing where people are from. Ah, Charlie, my bed. It doesn't surprise me none there. With you catching the cold that I gave you, apparently, all the way from Wisconsin. Granted, mine lasted like 2 days.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, at the feed mill.
$45,001.
Further particulars of yesterday's explosion. Scenes at the ruins during the day, the work of the explosion, ghastly remnants of clothing discovered, various theories as the cause of the accident, funeral arrangements, and other particulars. The scene of the terrible boiler explosion, which occurred yesterday at the feed mill of Follett and Stanley, was visited today by hundreds of curious people, desirous of viewing the wreck of the mill and noting all the details connected with the awful accident. All day long, groups of spectators gathered around the ill-fated building after carefully examining all that was to be seen. Congregated in little knots where, in low tones, the incidents of the event were rehearsed in all their details. The excitement having subsided, people were able to make a more careful examination of the ruins and to mark every particular of the calamity. The engine room, which consisted of a small lean-to built on the west side of the mill, but little remains except broken boards, splintered timbers, and scattered shingles distributed in all directions and in all distances up to several hundred feet from the mill. A portion of the smokestack lays diagonally across the place where the engine stood, and a small portion of the latter lies close behind the stack. Broken wheels and pieces of iron of all sizes were to be found in every direction, and all together there is a confused mass of debris around the grounds of such a nature that it's hard to tell what it formerly constituted. The mill proper stands erect, but on one side the window frames and sashes have been blown out as cleanly as if removed by a careful carpenter. The doors and other windows are in a demolished condition, and the floors, partitions, and machinery inside are jumbled up in one confused mass. Here and there, holes have been knocked through the sides of the building, and in various places, such as openings, have been made that old soldiers have remarked that the mill looks as if a battlefield of artillery had been firing upon it. Pieces of clothing stained with blood of the various victims of the accident, and with pieces of flesh adhering to them, have been found at some distance from the scene. In some instances, what appear to be small portions of human remains have been discovered. Near where the engine stood, a boot, all torn in pieces and soaked in blood, was picked up this morning, and is supposed to be one of those worn by Mr. Follett. In the mill, there is a full imprint of a man's body upon one of the walls, and this is said to show where Steinke was thrown by the concussion, after which it is believed he fell back amongst debris on the floor where he lay when found. Everyone who has given much thought to the explosion and examined the grounds has some theory to advance explaining the cause of the accident. Frank Follett is one of the opinion that there was dirt in the boiler and the water, and that the water glass being clogged did not give a true record. He is also of the opinion that his brother was leaning over the boiler and engaged in oiling or doing something to the machinery. As the engine was surrounded by a platform and as Follett was blown upwards and such a distance, it seems to be plain that he must have been over the boiler, though just what he was doing will remain unknown. Some have been inclined to believe that he was just started to pump water into the boiler, but the day the pipe connecting with the water barrel was found and the valve was tightly closed, it is thought that the aspirator could have not been running. Moreover, the valve was so situated that in order to reach it, the engineer had to stoop down and extend one arm under the engine. It is therefore argued that if Follett had started the pump, he would have been blown downward instead of upward. Others, however, claim that the valve might have been turned by the explosion, and the condition in which it was found proves nothing. A laborer who had been employed at odd times around the mill says that Mr. Follett always appeared to be very careful with the engine. He inclines to believe that if something was wrong with the boiler and that the water gauge did not give a true indication, he also considers that Follett might have been in the act of shutting it off the connections with the waterworks. All seems to agree that at the time of the explosion, the engine was not running and that it had shut down only a few minutes before the boiler burst. Two men who had been working in the mill of the Williamson and Libby Lumber Company state that shortly before they heard the noise, they noticed that the engine at the feed mill was puffing unusually fast and that it appeared to be laboring terribly. This fact caused them to remark that they must have lost lots of work over at Follett's, for they were crowding the engine so. Persons who claim to know say that the boiler of the engine was small and the power limited when at its best. It was the custom to keep as little water in the boiler as possible in order that the room for steam might be increased and more power obtained. Speculations of the kind already given are so numerous that they were published in full, they would fill columns, and it is the same with stories of those in different parts of the city who tell of their houses being rocked, of windows broken, of plastering cracked, but the concussion of the explosion and the various conjectures as to what happened in talking with the relatives of Mr. Follett. They expressed surprise that the faces and head of the deceased was not injured after he had been blown up with the fragments of the building and against the telegraph wires and finally deposited upon the sidewalk at a distance of several hundred feet. It was also learned that he had no insurance upon his life and that there was no explosion insurance on the mill. It had been arranged for his funeral to take place tomorrow morning at 10:30 from the family residence, 23 Park Street. Reverend John W. Greenwood will officiate. The funeral of R. Steinke will take place at 2 o'clock Friday afternoon from his father's house in the town of Vinland. There is some talk that the mill being rebuilt, but at present those interested are so overcome by the accident that they have no desire to talk business. The total financial loss is estimated between $2,000 and $3,000. The physicians attending Edward Cochran and Will Clements stated that this afternoon that both are doing well. The former is suffering with a broken arm and a broken leg, both on the right side, and a severe blow across the stomach. Today, he stated that the pain in his stomach ceased and that he was feeling better. In conversation with Officer Hogan this afternoon, he said he had gone into the mill for 2 bags of feed, one of which had been tied up and weighed, and that while waiting for the other, the explosion occurred. After that, he remembers nothing until he recovered consciousness and found himself at his own home. Clement's right arm is badly fractured near the shoulder, but he is now doing well as he can be expected, and at present it is not feared that amputation will be necessary. February 11th, 1886. Yeah, it does sound like a faulty pressure release, though, possibly, Joe. Hello, Bo. Yes, so I don't know if I don't know if we're going to read any more or not tonight. Maybe we'll have to do some more next Monday.
We can start earlier next Monday too.
Yes, we absolutely can start earlier next Monday. We just wanted something to do. And get on here, say hi to some people.
What's it called on Mondays again?
Morbid Mondays.
Morbid Monday's Story Hour.
Well, why don't you come over here, Matt?
I was just gonna make sure the dog ain't gonna start barking
Oh,
at
he's
every
fine.
little thing again.
So stay tuned next week for Morbid Monday nights. I will let everybody know if something changes. But thank you all for stopping in for some story time. I hope you all have a great night, day,
Just
whatever.
remember we got a lot going on.
Yes, we do have a lot going on.
Morbid Mondays and trips and magnet fishing and games, and we'll be here for a lot.
Yes. So good night, y'all. Be kind to yourself and others. And we will see you next time.